I was very open this morning about saying, we're just warming up. I meant it. We've covered some foundational work this morning. What I want to do for the next 3 sessions, which will close out this evening or close out today, is really start drilling a little deeper. We've got the mirror up there. We've cleared some of the fog away. It's time to start polishing a little. And I'm going to need your help and feedback and commitment to this next session, as impactful as I know it can be, and as it has been for many people that have gone through sessions similar that I've taught in the past. But for that, we need a sense of energy. So I'm hoping that enormous carb fest food baby lunch that most of you devoured is just about working its way through. So do I have some energy in the room? Yeah! Oh, alrighty. Normally I ask twice, but I think I got the message on that one. Excellent. Okay, so we are rocking. Please turn to page 20. The Journey to Emotional Maturity. I mentioned earlier that we don't get to vote on whether we mature biologically, regardless of what a lot of the cosmetic companies that try to sell you youth creams will tell you. But that's just going to happen. And I see a lot of issues with people around self-image when it comes to the physiological aspect of biological maturity. If you've got hair that's starting to go gray or wrinkles that are starting to, it's part of the seasons of life, guys. You can turn and say, oh no, I need to look this particular way, otherwise what will people think? Well, I've asked a lot of people, and I've got a consensus on what they think. Would you like to know? Right. They don't care. They're too busy being worried about what they think you're thinking of them. Right? And it's what I call my movie star metaphor. I talked about goop earlier, G-O-O-P, the good opinion of other people. Most people spend their life swimming in goop. It is a sticky end to nowhere. And I lived that life for many years. There's a lot of people that fall into that trap. It's very difficult. How do you know if someone's in goop? See where significance is on their radar. That's always a telling sign. Now, not always. Good opinion of others can affect you at almost any level, but it's always has its roots in that conditional love basis. I've got to be good enough to earn love. So I become this giant chameleon whereby I adapt my behavior, not from a place of being driven authentically, not from a place of expressing who I am, but from a place of how do I change what I'm doing unconsciously in order to fit into the model of the world of somebody else so that they can give me approval, connection, significance, validation, love, etc., etc. And it turns us into this giant adaptation machine where, oh, you like me this way? Great. Oh, you don't like, you want me this way? I'll be this way. And who we are never shows up. The authenticity of who we are to give our gift never shows up if we're swimming in goop. So how does goop work? Very simple. I'll give you a metaphor. Every one of us in this room right now is starring in a movie. And it's the movie of our life. And as the star in the movie of our life, we get to star in every single scene. How cool is that? Now, does everybody else in your life star in every scene of your movie? Guys? Yeah, just keep the energy coming. No, of course not. All right, but you do. You get to experience every scene in your movie, even the ones you can't remember after a Saturday night. But they're still your scenes, and you were still in them. We have photographic evidence to prove it. So, if you're walking around as the star in your movie, you're experiencing everything through the first person of the star of my movie, then what happens is, as we interact with people, we start to realize that, well, hang on a minute, everybody else in my movie is a co-star or a supporting cast, or a film extra. That's pretty much all they can be. Everybody else, bless you, everybody else in your movie is a film extra in your movie from your perspective. At best, they could be a potential supporting cast or co-star, like maybe a child or a wife or what have you. But predominantly, you are the star in your movie. Would you agree? Now, if you don't agree, we need to talk. So as the star in your movie, we recognize everybody else is interacting with me from my perspective as a supporting cast or a film extra. Now, the challenge is that seduces us over a lifetime of that frame into thinking that everybody else sees us as we see us. In other words, Everyone else obviously sees me as the star of my movie. Well, I got news for you. If you're the star of your movie, what role do you think they're actually playing? They're the star of their movie. They're walking around in their own movie star bubble, with their own, star on the door of their dressing room, walking around in every scene of their particular movie, which means at the very best you could be maybe a supporting cast with maybe 3 or 4 or less than a handful of people in your life. 99.9% of the time, what is actually going on? Who are you in somebody else's movie? Film extra. You're an extra. You happen to fit the bill of that particular scene in that particular engagement, what have you. So if you're walking around making the mistake that everybody's seeing you as the star in your movie and wondering what you look like, and I daren't go down to the supermarket unless I got my makeup on, or oh no, I need to walk around with a tank top, or I need to drive this particular car, what will everybody think? I know what they're thinking. Already done the survey. This is what they're thinking. Oh, I wonder what that other person's thinking. That's it. That's life. Everybody's walking around in a bubble, not realizing that it's their bubble. And when you can step out of that and understand that nobody cares enough about you to bother to give an opinion because they're too busy being worried about what they think you're thinking of them. Now we see goop for what it really is. It's an illusion of insecurity. An illusion of insecurity. See what happened earlier when I brought Adrian on stage, when he was coming up and he's been driven by significance and it's affecting a lot of the different unconscious behaviors in his life, and he stood there trying to be significant, right? You got an angsty feeling about it. It's like insecure, disingenuous. But the second he started to own himself, where he let go of the need for that and recognized it was innate, boom, a different energy shifted, different context. Didn't change the content, still had the same clothes, still had the same life, but there was a shift in context. And so emotional maturity starts with getting out of goop. You cannot live an emotionally mature life if you are driven by the good opinion of other people. Now, the flip side of that, I'm not giving you carte blanche to say, okay, well, screw the world then. I'm just going to go do what I want to do. That's not what I'm saying. You will do what is in your values list. If you value significance over contribution, then you're going to put yourself first at the expense of others. Follow that? If your self-worth and your net worth are tied together, then you will likely compromise your values around money faster than anything else. Because if you think you're going to make a financial decision and it's going to go south, and therefore it could potentially affect your revenue or your net worth, and that would take down your sense of self-worth, which would trigger the fear that we are not enough, and most people will do almost anything to avoid that fear, then you will compromise your values and sell yourself out on making the decision over here without actually understanding what was going on with the wiring. So getting out of the good opinion of others really means the ability to do what's right. Now, what is what's right? Life is a subjective experience. What is right is according to what you feel is right. Everybody else is going to have a different opinion, but if you have a decent set of values and you're driven by some sort of sense of what you feel is right or wrong, and you're driven by some sort of sense of wanting to help rather than hinder, and you don't want somebody to become less than just because they crossed your path, then you've pretty much got your North Star on how to guide that. Not going to please everybody all of the time. Well, great. Why? Because everybody else has got their own issues going on that are projecting their own insecurities, hoping that you don't judge them for that. And then they'll defend their own model of the world and attack yours. It's predictable. I get many negative comments on my YouTube channel, but I have a rule. I never delete any of them. Why? Everybody has a right to be able to voice their own opinion. It doesn't affect me. I have a strong innate sense of what it is that I'm doing. Now, don't get me wrong. We all have blind spots. And so I'm happy for somebody to hold up a mirror. If I'm being a dick, then someone let me know. Because it's not my intention. But other than that, most people, when they complain, when they become a troll or a hater or something, are doing nothing more than projecting their own model of the world. Doesn't affect mine. I can have compassion for that, not judgment. Does that make sense? But if I'm insecure about my model of the world, then I'm going to get into a debate. Oh no, you don't understand. You're just stupid, which is the subtext of you don't understand. Right? How many people love hearing that? Oh, yeah, no, you're right, I am stupid. Sorry, I didn't see that. Huh? That doesn't work. No, so now you get into tit for tat, and it's all about justification by who can validate more points about why their model of the world's right. Nobody's listening. Everybody's waiting to attack and defend. Do you know how much energy is wasted in that? Do you know how much life, how many dots on that page are just vaporized? Yeah, as a result of that? Pfft. Oh, no, you don't understand. Well, I do understand. I understand that, you don't think I understand. And I'm okay with that. I don't need validation. Right? I'm open to my beliefs being invalidated, and that's cool if I have more information. But I don't need to defend them to make you feel as if me feel right about you agreeing with me. That's just a way to nowhere. So emotional maturity starts with getting out of goop, understanding that nobody's going to see the world the way you do. Just like as entrepreneurs, nobody's going to want to run the business the way you want it run. They don't see it that way. They're not entrepreneurs. They're staff members, they're team members, they're colleagues. If they knew how to run a business the way that you wanted it run, they'd be doing it for themselves. Understand? So no one's going to do it the way you want to do it. That's off the bat. Be okay with that. Now, there's training and there's guidance and there's everything else. You don't want to just say, okay, then hopefully they'll read my mind and flip a coin. That's not why we're here. But ultimately, you need to own yourself. And emotional maturity starts with some fundamentals that I want to invite you into right now. The first one being, one of the number one aspects of people that do step through that at that gateway is, number one, keep raising my standards. Keep raising my standards. What does that look like? It means getting out of my comfort zone. Now, again, be careful. Yeah, we heard from some other people today about, oh, no, I just want to keep growing, keep on pushing. What's driving that? Usually it's insecurity in order to become good enough so everybody can see me and think, oh, I'm okay, I'm arrived, yeah, I'm good enough. But no, raising my standards is about focused on growth and contribution, and it's the growth aspect rather than using growth as a vehicle to get significance. Make sense? So what does raising my standards look like? Well, there's one thing that I want to share with you, and that is about understanding that 90 to 95% of what we do is what? Conscious or habit? Which one? Habit. So how are habits formed? Two ways. One is through an imprint that bypasses conscious processing. That happens either from 0 to 7, or it happens through a significant emotional event. But 95% of the patterns that we develop happen through repetition. Now, the behavior that causes that is always preceded by thinking. So therefore, the thinking patterns of habituation lead to the behavior that we then exude. Everyone follow that? So people try to change a behavior without changing the thinking and then wonder why it doesn't work. You change the thinking that causes the behavior, and the behavior will shift on its own. Many of us have probably had experiences like that. Well, I just don't do that anymore because you had a shift in thinking. Anyone relate to that? Yeah, whereas opposed to you really trying to change a behavior, but you're still thinking the same thoughts. It's like swimming upstream. So what are some of the habits that I would encourage people to have if you're looking to raise your standards? Well, the first one has to be, if we go back to being able to program our better level of thinking, is to understand what causes a lot of the bad thinking in the first place. We've already talked through the 0 to 7 stuff. We've already talked about our first memory being that of conditional love. But when we get around into society, there's two predominant aspects that influence our thinking at an unconscious level more than anything else. Before I share with them, I want to share with you a fundamental truth. And that is that, again, I'm a simple guy, keep it simple. Our mindset, our mind, our inner workings here, operate very, very similar to how our bodies operate. In other words, our mind and our body are both a 24-hour, non-stop adaptation machine to our environment. I'll say that again. Our body and our mind are a 24/7 adaptation machine to our environment, constantly taking environmental signals, filtering through the 5 senses, and then adapting as a result. Now, physically, we understand that. No big stretch. Yeah, if I put my body in an environment called McDonald's, then it's going to adapt, is it not? It doesn't care if you think if it's going to kill you sooner rather than later. Its job isn't to judge, its job is to adapt. You go live in a hot country, within 6 months, you've adapted or acclimatized, as we call it, to the weather. You go back to living in a cold country and all your friends are there in t-shirts and wondering why you've got a sweatshirt on. Because we adapt. So, you go in the gym, you start pushing weights, your body's going to adapt. It's going to change based upon its environment, whether you want it to or not. You understand that? Our mind is the same, and most people forget. Your mind is going to adapt to its environment. You start hanging around with 10 people that are self-motivated, that come up with how I can, not why we can't, that come from possibility, not limitation. And you're going to start adapting to that environment mentally. That's why a peer group is so powerful. Or you're going to start hanging around with people that make excuses, that come from the fact that, well, maybe tomorrow, mañana, it can't be done. Well, it's never been done before. And all of that level of low energy, blame to me. Hang around with 10 of those, I've got news for you. You're going to become the 11th. Not because you're a bad person, not because you had the wrong intentions, but because the power of your inner world and outer world being pre-programmed to adapt to its environment. Make sense? Survival. So, if we understand that a lot of our success and emotional maturity is based upon the behaviors based on habit, those behaviors are driven by patterns of thinking, what's the most influential aspects that have an effect on our thinking in terms of environment? Well, it's two things. One I've already mentioned, which is the peer group that you hang with. That's proximity. The second, by far, which is what I see take people down the tube, is the media. So I put on there, one of the habits that I would strongly recommend is to avoid the media and upgrade your peer group. And we'll cover more on peer group tomorrow, but avoid the media. And when I say avoid the media, I'm talking the traditional mainstream type of media. There's a lot of new media that's out there now, which is positive, inspirational, the podcasts of the world, all that kind of stuff. But traditional mainstream media is ran on a different set of objectives than what most people are led to believe. It's like the food companies will try to tell you that things like low fat, high sugar is better for you. Well, no. We know it isn't, but we get seduced into it, and then we just don't question it, and then all of a sudden, pass me another Coke. So, if we understand that the media, what's really going on, we're free to make a more informed choice. Again, I'm not here to take anybody's newspaper away. You're still free to go and buy one tomorrow, should you wish. But the role of the media is not, underline, not to report the news. That's just, again, you're in Disneyland if you think that's the case. The role of the media is very simple. It is to stimulate a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is an evolutionary part of the brain that notices negative before positive. It's a very useful part of the brain. Why? Because we have two aspects of our brain that are responsible for conscious awareness. Other than that, we're on 95% rule. Yeah, running unconscious. What we tend to notice has to come through a gatekeeper. Why? Because out of the 4 billion pieces of bits of information that we process per second, we're only consciously aware of a small amount. And the numbers will vary depending on what study you want to look at. But essentially, the way I like to look at it is you've got an ant and an elephant. The unconscious mind is an elephant. The conscious mind is an ant. Similar kind of ratios. Now, here's the problem. Most people think, oh, great. I'm using my conscious mind. I'm using the ant. And we want to head a goal, and we're going this way, boom, hey, and you start marching this way, consciously. But you're walking across the back of an elephant that's heading that way. So we think we're making progress, but 6 months later, we're further back than we were. Anyone ever had that? So how do you get in alignment? Well, I say, understand that the role of the media is not to give the news, it's to stimulate the amygdala. What out of those 4 billion pieces of information come into our conscious awareness comes under two categories. The first is governed by a part called the reticular activating system, which notices what's important. How does it know what's important? You tell it. How do you tell it? Through repetition and declaration. Now, what do most people start noticing? What do most people focus on? Scarcity or abundance? Oh, so you're telling your reticular activating system that scarcity is important. So out of 4 billion pieces of information a second, it's telling you, oh, well, let me see if I can find evidence of scarcity and flag it up because you're telling me it's important. So you start experiencing more scarcity. It's what you tell it, it's important. Give you another example. You're at a party, room full of this size, everyone's just talking. And you're having a conversation here, and somebody over there in a separate conversation mentions your name. Do you hear it?
Yes.
Boom. It's like, oh, hang on, I just heard my name. Now, were you listening to everything else that was going on in the party? Unconsciously, yes, you were. Your brain was scanning everything, processing every piece of information, and it was lifting the rug up of the conscious and unconscious awareness and sweeping 99+% of that information under the carpet because it wasn't relevant to you. Make sense? That's the reticular activating system. It lifts up the carpet and drops it down. Vast majority of information in your conscious awareness that's coming into you through the senses is swept under the rug into your unconscious. But it's still being scanned. And, oh, hang on, my name, above the carpet. Guys, you're allowed in. Oh, what was that? You're driving to work, and you're looking now, your daughter says she wants a bike for her birthday. 6-year-old daughter says she wants a bike, and got to get her a bike. You're driving to work, you see a bike shop. The bike shop's been there for the last 5 years. But was it important? No. Did you notice it? Of course you did. But was it conscious? No. It was swept under the rug. It wasn't important. Don't need it. Just like the shop either side of it. If you'd have been looking for something that was relevant to those shops, it would have pulled that out and put the bike shop underneath. Do you follow me? So it drops it down. So it's what you tell it, it's important. You're looking for opportunity. Does your reticular activating system know that? Or are you just hoping to bump into it? There's a saying in sales that even a blind squirrel falls over a nut now and again. So you might bump into opportunity, but if you give yourself an absolute command and intention saying, boom, this is what I'm looking for, it'll go to work for you. Just like your keys. Unless you put a scotoma in. Anyone ever lost their keys? And you can't find the keys. So what do you tell your brain? What are you telling your brain? Oh, can't find my keys. Can't find my keys. Can't find my keys. Anyone can't find my keys? And you do a circuit around the house called the can't find my keys circuit, don't you? Right? I can't find my keys. Can't find my keys. You look everywhere. Yeah. Have you seen my keys? Where did you put them last? Oh, for Christ's sake. Right? No, can't find my keys. Can't find my keys. Now, what happens when you complete that circuit? And you can't find your keys? You do the same circuit, but with more energy, don't you? I can't find my keys. You don't understand. I can't find my keys. I can't find my keys. And then what happens? Your partner comes up and says, oh sorry, you looking for these? You're like, they weren't there a minute ago. Well, I didn't put them there. What's going on with that? Well, you create a scotoma, a blind spot, because again, same thing with the carpet, lifting up and down. Here's what happens. You're saying, I can't find my keys, can't find my keys. Now, out of 4 billion pieces of information, the brain spots the key. The eyes spot the keys. So bang, there it is. And they send a message. Eyes to brain. Spotted the keys. And the brain says, shut up. He says you can't find them. No, you don't seem to understand. No, shut up. I'm not going to make him out to be a liar. And so you carry on. You create your own blind spot. Next time you lose your keys, give yourself a positive instruction. I know my keys are here somewhere. The second my eyes see them, I'll find them. And you'll have a very different result. So your reticular activating system plays a big part in how you're programmed. There's one other part, and this is where the media comes in. It's called the amygdala. The amygdala gets a VIP security access pass to the front of the line above the carpet. For one reason only, survival. It's designed to notice what is threatening or negative before positive. And 10,000 years ago, that's very useful because you walk past a tree and you miss an apple. Yeah, no big deal. You miss a snake, could be a big deal. So it's wired in. Now, the media and people on Madison Avenue and people out of Harvard that get paid a lot of money, very smart, to essentially write headlines to do one thing in the media. Out of everything that's going on, they want to pick out the microcosm in reality that is going to fire off that amygdala. Everyone follow me? Because that's going to get your attention. Otherwise, it's noise, and noise doesn't pay the bills on a newspaper or a news channel. They're not charity. They're not there for your benefit. They're there to manipulate you through understanding how your brain works to get you to dial in so they can justify ratings figures. It's a business model. But you say, well, I've got to know what's going on. What do you mean what's going on? Shut up. Let me give you another analogy. Amazon rainforest. What's going on in the Amazon? Everything, of course. So imagine the Amazon at night, and you take a flashlight. The flashlight is what's known as the traditional media. and they will shine it on one tiny little microcosm of what's going on. Oh my God, look at this snake eating this poor frog. As opposed to you taking the flashlight and saying, oh wow, look at the birth of that little hummingbird, for example. What's going on? Everything's going on. What's going on in the world? Everything's going on in the world. A much better question is, what do you want to choose to focus on? Because if you don't choose to focus on something for yourself with positive intent, I've got news for you. The newspapers are going to take you and say, look, there's the flashlight. This is what's actually going on in the world. Well, everything's going on in the world. But if I want to choose to focus on that, just so that my compass needle can default to negative more often so that you can sell more advertising, that hasn't got my best interests at heart. Everyone follow me? And you don't get to vote or not whether you're being programmed, because your body and your mind are a 24/7 adaptation machine. So if you're exposing it consistently to that level of information, you are going to adapt. You're going to think negative instead of positive, and your journey to emotional maturity will be compromised there and then. Does this make sense? So one of the first things I would suggest as a habit, I'd invite you to look at, is to avoid the media. Now, what does that look like? I'm going to demonstrate something here. You'll see on your page there, something called the habit curve. I'm going to explain why most people fail at creating new habits. It's a little seduction that life does that we don't tend to see, and we miss it. So we're going to have two lines, kind of a funnel there. Now the top line, I draw a positive. That's the positive side of the habit curve. The bottom line is the negative side of the habit curve. Yeah? And so just here, this point is decision point. We're going to start a new habit.